Well, welcome everyone. Spring is in the air. Can you feel it? Daylight savings time implemented. Check. Spring equinox, March 22nd, coming right up. Spring can't be far off. If you're able, please consider helping Project Green in the city of Iowa City with an Arbor Day planting project on April 21. We have information at the back table. Welcome to our final Second Sunday Garden Forum 2026. My name is Linda Schreiber. Our garden forums are free and open to the public, and attendance provides continuing education credit hours. The forums offer great tips about the environment and activities in nature and beautifying our public spaces. Thanks go to Beth Fisher, Bon Drager, and the Iowa City Public Library and staff for hosting the presentations and providing our speaker with technical assistance. Today's program is live streamed on the Iowa City Public Library's YouTube channel and can be viewed there at any time. Our nonprofit organization was formed in 1968 and has devoted its resources to educating the public about the environment and conservation practices and beautifying public spaces. In 2025, our volunteers contributed nearly 1,200 hours of service in Project Green Gardens. If you are a volunteer, please stand to be recognized. Yay. Project Green relies on financial contributions to enable us to do our work. Your support is greatly appreciated and can be made in one of three ways: at our website at projectgreen.org, at the Community Foundation of Johnson County, at the Project Green Endowment Fund, or via the City of Iowa City's Green Fund. You can watch for details about Project Green activities on our website and social media. Today we'll follow the format of our previous forums. Our speaker will present for 45 minutes to an hour. We'll take a break. Our in-house guests are invited to enjoy beverages in the back of the room. We ask our in-house audience to write out your questions on the clipboard at the front table. This is important because our program is live streamed and our online audience can't hear the questions without a microphone. When we reconvene, our speaker will respond to your questions. So now take a moment, please, and silence your cell phones. I've done mine. We're in for a treat today. Spending time outdoors is great for our cognitive and mental health. Studies show that spending time in nature, especially while engaged in focused activities like birding, lowers the stress hormone cortisol, enhances our mood, and can even improve our attention span and cognitive abilities. The more you bird, the more you learn and continue to stimulate your brain and boost your memory. Within a span of a few months, Johnson County and the City of Iowa City both earned the High Flyer status, the highest designation available from an initial bird-friendly Iowa application. Johnson County Conservation was recognized last fall, and the Iowa City Bird Club helped secure a bird-friendly community designation for the City of Iowa City in January. Johnson County Conservation and the Iowa City Bird Club's work is important because North America has lost nearly 3 billion, that's with a B, birds since 1970. According to the State of Birds report issued last year, supporting bird conservation can boost the U.S. economy. Millions of Americans are engaged in birding activities. The work of Johnson County Conservation and volunteers like our speaker today is vital. Ben Rowold began volunteering with the Johnson County Conservation Board long before he retired in 2023. He combines his lifelong interest in nature with hands-on stewardship to monitor the Bluebird nest box trail at F.W. Kent Park. He is entering his 12th season of supporting this conservation effort. Ben values opportunities to connect with the natural world As a master naturalist, he serves on the board of the Iowa Master Naturalists, where he enjoys learning, sharing, and building connections with others who care deeply about conservation. Please welcome Ben.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here today. My name is, as she said, Ben Rowold, and I'm from Iowa City. I'm a volunteer for Johnson County Conservation Board, and this will actually be my 11th year monitoring the Kent Park Bluebird Nest Box Trail. I'm not a bird expert, but I'd like to talk about this special bird today using some facts and photos I've gathered from the internet, and also talk about some of my experiences as a trail monitor. How many here have monitored a bluebird trail? We got several over here. Okay, so I'll keep the brags low and try to stick to facts. So okay, but and as I understand it, the questions will be answered after the break. So. The eastern bluebird is a thrush, so it's in the same family as our American robin. There are two other species of bluebird in North and Central America, the mountain bluebird and the western bluebird. I've never seen a mountain or a western in the wild, but I think I would recognize the western because he's wearing that little cowboy vest. I think that would. Male eastern bluebirds are deep blue on their back and rusty or brick red on their throat and breast. The females are grayish on their back with bluish wings and tail and a subdued orange-brown breast. Bluebird's song has been described as a pleasing musical series of mellow whistles. I haven't noticed this, but some bluebird monitors claim that they can tell one male's song from another. I have hearing aids, so I'm not able to do that, but I did bring an expert to demonstrate the song of an eastern bluebird. This is Seabiscuit, and he was a gift to me from my son, and it says on here, Audubon birds with real bird calls provided by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So that's pretty official, I think. Okay. Thank you, Seabiscuit. And I bought eastern bluebirds also use a bill snapping sound or clacking noise as a warning to predators and other intruders attempting to approach their territory or their nests. When I approach a box that contains eggs or chicks, the parents sometimes dive bomb me and make this very rapid clicking sound. And I asked Seabiscuit if he would do that too, but he said no, he's not mad at me, so I can't get that sound to come out. Yeah, that's not, yeah. Eastern bluebirds eat mostly seeds, insects and berries. They don't eat seeds. They like to perch on wires, fence posts, and tree branches overlooking open fields. They flutter down to the ground to grab an insect, occasionally catching them in midair. It's believed that bluebirds can spot their prey from 60 feet away. 68% of a bluebird's diet is made up of insects. They eat grasshoppers, crickets, beetles, spiders, and caterpillars. The rest is mostly berries. They eat suet, but they're generally not seed eaters, so they don't often come to backyard feeders unless you have mealworms out for them to eat. Then they'll come and eat the mealworms. In the fall and winter, bluebirds eat large amounts of berries, including red cedar, sumac, hackberry, juniper, dogwood, holly, and elderberries. This is a picture of a nest that I removed from one of my boxes a couple years ago. The bluebirds had fledged, and the box had been claimed by a house wren that threw all these twigs on top of the bluebird nest. But the bluebirds had left all of these pits in the nest. The parents had obviously been bringing berries to the nestlings, who ate them and then pooped out the pits. So I always meant to take those pits and see if I could propagate them and raise them. And I need some help from some of you is to do that, because it involves letting them outside and freeze. Anyway, I gave up on that idea. But eastern bluebirds are secondary cavity nesters. A cavity nester is any bird that raises its young inside an enclosed cavity. There are two types of cavity nesters. The primary cavity nesters, they excavate their own cavities using strong bills and specialized behavior. They are namely the woodpeckers. The secondary cavity nesters, they can't excavate their own nesting cavities, and therefore they depend on existing cavities, for example, those created by the woodpeckers or formed naturally through decay or storms. Besides bluebirds, these are some of the other Iowa secondary cavity nesters: tree swallow, purple martin, house wren, black-capped chickadee, tufted titmouse, white-breasted nuthatch, red-breasted nuthatch, European starling, and house sparrow. All of these birds are looking for a hole somewhere to build their nest in. So bluebirds obviously have a lot of competition for nesting sites. This range map shows where eastern bluebirds can be found in the Western Hemisphere. Eastern bluebirds occur across eastern North America and south as far as Nicaragua. Bluebirds live in meadows and openings surrounded by trees that offer suitable nest holes. They like open areas, large lawns, pastures, cemeteries, golf courses, parks, farm field edges, and roadsides. In the fall, some bluebirds migrate and others do not. According to the DNR, about 1/3 of Iowa bluebirds stay in Iowa. So you can see bluebirds in Iowa in the dead of winter. Some studies have shown that 30% of the bluebirds that do migrate return to the same nesting site the following season. In the spring, male bluebirds, this is one of my pictures. In the spring, male bluebirds start to establish breeding territories and scout for nest sites. I've personally seen nesting activity as early as March 10th, but more commonly it starts in mid to late March or early April. I've never witnessed it, but males competing for territories have been seen chasing each other at high speed, sometimes grappling with their feet, pulling at feathers with their beaks, and hitting with their wings. They've been seen attacking other species they deem a threat, including house sparrows, European starlings, and tree swallows, as well as non-cavity nesters such as robins, blue jays, and cowbirds. When the male has claimed a suitable cavity, he puts on a display to attract a female. He brings nest material to the hole. He goes in the hole, goes out of the hole. He waves his wings while perched on top above the hole. Often the first thing I find in the nest boxes in the spring is a few pieces of grass, which I call courting grass. But that's all that the male contributes to the nest building. The female builds the nest. Once a female enters the nest hole with the male, the pair bond is usually established and often remains intact for several seasons. Nest construction typically takes 2 to 6 days, with the female gathering nesting material from the ground, The nest is usually built 100% with fine grass or with pine needles. Bluebirds usually lay 1 egg per day before 10 a.m. That's why I don't go and check my boxes in the morning. I wait till the afternoon to check the boxes. Skipping a day in cold weather is possible, but not common. In Iowa, they typically lay 5 eggs for their first brood. They usually start egg laying a day or 2 days after the nest is completed, but it can be delayed for up to a week or even 2 weeks. It's believed that this happens if the weather is too cold, or if the parents are young, or in cases where food is scarce. So I often find a new completed bluebird nests with no eggs in them. Eastern bluebirds typically have more than 1 successful brood per year, and the second brood tends to have fewer eggs, usually 4 in my experience. So occasionally in the first brood you get a 6-pack. And I didn't see any 6-egg clutches like this at Kent Park until about 4 years ago, and I have no explanation for that, why they started laying 6 eggs instead of 5. I read that now I usually see several 6-egg clutches per year. I read that female eastern bluebirds sometimes engage in egg dumping, which means that they lay an egg in another female's nest. This might happen when a female is unable to secure her own nest. In my experience, in about half the cases where I have had a 6-egg clutch, 1 egg doesn't hatch, which I think means that 1 egg in the nest was a dumped egg and was not fertile. That's just my theory on it. When I first saw this, I thought a small chicken had gotten into my box, but actually, no. I had already learned that 4 to 5% of bluebirds lay white eggs. I think I might have had 6 or 7 white egg layers since I started, so it's very rare. A female that lays white eggs will also always lay white eggs throughout her life. So the trait appears to be genetic. White eggs are just as fertile as blue eggs, and they hatch into normal colored chicks. So. Bluebird egg incubation usually takes 12 to 14 days, but it can range from 11 to 19 days. Only the female incubates the egg. The male bluebird does not develop a brood patch. That's the part where they pull the feathers out of their breast, and it's just bare skin there, the brood patch. And just the females do that. The female may come and go during the day, sometimes staying away for longer periods during warm weather. She usually stays on the nest at night, though. The female lays 1 egg a day, but she doesn't start to sit on them to start incubation until the day that the last egg is laid. And for this reason, normally, all the eggs hatch within a half hour to 1 day of each other. Unless the chicks are in the process of actually hatching, I never find eggshells in the nests with the chicks. This is because the parents remove the eggshells, or they may eat some of them. I've seen videos of the mother eating the eggshells, and it's believed that she benefits from the calcium intake. So eggs out, eggs in, I guess. So the female broods the young when she sits on them until they're 5 to 7 days old, when they are better able to regulate their own body temperature. It's been said that when they're first born, the babies look a bit like hairy shrimp. And they typically remain in the nest for 17 to 18 days, although it can be as short as 12 days or as long as 21 days. Both parents feed the young. And by the way, the male, while the female is brooding or incubating, will bring food to the female, which I think is cute. Nestlings defecate right after being fed. So the parents often wait for this and then take the fecal sac out of the nest immediately. So after the chicks are hatched, I have to be careful and keep good records so as to avoid a premature fledge where the nestlings come out of the box before they're ready. To avoid this, when there have been chicks in the box for 2 weeks in a row, I don't open the box again until after they have fledged. Some people don't bother to do that. They open the box or they open the door just a little tiny bit. And if the birds are still in there, they slam the door shut. But I'd rather not risk that. Back when I was raising wrens, and I'll tell you about that, I once had a premature fledge experience. I opened a box and 8 baby wrens flew into my face and they fell into the surrounding prairie grass, and there was just nothing I could do at that point. After that experience, I started using a borescope camera that I bought on Amazon. It uses Wi-Fi to connect to my cell phone. The pictures aren't very high quality, but they serve the purpose. When the chicks had been in the nest for 2 weeks, I just used the borescope to see if they were still in the box. I have since purchased a borescope with a better image on it, but it doesn't use Wi-Fi and doesn't take pictures. But I still love the pictures I originally took with that old borescope. Young bluebirds are not fully developed when they leave the nest. Their wings are short and rounded and still growing, the same with their short tail. This picture was taken by a friend of mine, Diane Zumbaugh, at Kent Park, and it probably shows one of my juveniles with its father. After leaving the nest, young bluebirds stay with their parents for about 3 weeks, and the parents continue to feed them. They're out there in the bushes or in the trees or on the fences or whatever, and the parents are bringing food to them. So within 2 weeks after leaving the nest, fledglings begin to feed themselves alongside the parents. They gradually take less and less food from the parents as they learn to forage for themselves. The parents eventually become aggressive toward the fledglings to encourage their total independence and so that the parents can start another brood. When they become nutritionally independent, spring fledglings leave their parents' territory and join flocks of other youngsters. The fledglings from the second brood tend to stay in their parents' territory longer, often remaining together over the winter. Bluebirds can have 1 to 4 broods per year. 2 broods are common in most areas, and that's what I experience at Kent Park. 3rd and 4th broods attempts are more common in southern states. Bluebirds do not remove old nesting material from the nesting cavity out in the wild. Rather, they simply build a new nest on top of the old one. This is what they do when using natural cavities. If allowed to do this with nest boxes, however, the box may become filled to the brim with old nesting material. This can potentially leave the new nest dangerously close to the entrance hole, where predators can easily reach in. So the common practice for monitors is to remove all nesting material from the nest box after the chicks have fledged. The parents then build a new nest they build a new nest from scratch. Since European colonization, large sections of forest and other natural rural landscapes have been cleared for housing and commercial developments, highways, and row crop agriculture. These changes greatly reduced the supply of natural cavities for bluebirds and other native cavity nesting species. Even the old wooden fence posts that once provided nesting cavities have been replaced with metal posts. Then in the mid-1860s, the impact of the natural cavity losses was compounded by the introduction of two European cavity nesting species into North America, both invasive birds, the European starling and the house sparrow. Both are extremely aggressive competitors for nesting cavities. House sparrows are small enough to enter any hole that a bluebird can, and they will chase away or even kill bluebirds when competing for a nest box. Starlings can be excluded from the nest box by using the correct size entrance hole, but they will outcompete bluebirds for woodpecker holes and other natural nesting cavities. In addition, massive flocks of European starlings strip the landscape of wild berries, the primary winter food of bluebirds. Of course, bluebirds have also suffered, alongside all birds, from the effects of pesticides and feral cats. According to the Iowa Ornithologists Union, in the United States, eastern bluebird numbers dropped by as much as 90% between 1930 and 1990. Well, at some point, people started to notice this, and some of them began setting out bluebird nest boxes. Gradually, the bluebird population decline was slowed down. Then in 1978, the North American Bluebird Society was formed. The society advocated for the installation of bluebird nesting boxes and the creation of bluebird trails. A trail is just a series of bluebird boxes placed along a prescribed route. The nesting boxes were designed with an entrance hole too small for starlings to use, which helped eliminate some of the competition for those boxes. Amazingly, the installation of bluebird boxes and trails allowed the bluebird population to slowly recover across the country. Today, the eastern bluebird is considered a species of low conservation concern, according to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I'm not sure if that's the correct term for it, low conservation concern, because bluebirders are still concerned about this and about conserving them. And I think that without those boxes, we would see another decline in the bluebird population. Their habitat has not returned. The natural cavities are not there anymore. So, when I volunteered to monitor the Kent Park Trail in 2016, I knew nothing about bluebirds or bluebird boxes or how to monitor them. But the park naturalist, Kristen Morrow, trusted me and printed out some basic instructions for me, and I started visiting the boxes once a week. And I bought a hat to do this. Yeah. Boy, I should have been wearing that the whole time. But, I would go out and look in the boxes, and I would write down what I found. Then I would go home and Google the issues that came up. I did a whole lot of Googling that first year. One of the websites that kept coming up was Cialis. The name comes from the scientific name for eastern bluebirds, Cialia cialis. And the site is run by a woman from Connecticut who monitors about 100 bluebird boxes and was formerly on the board of the directors of the North American Bluebird Society. Just about any bluebird topic that you Google, you'll get a hit on this site. Of course, the North American Bluebird Society itself has a lot of information on its website, including fact sheets on how to get started in bluebirding, frequently asked questions, plans for building nest boxes, and tips on monitoring. And the Iowa Department of Natural Resources also has good information on their website. I'll put this slide back up again at the end. The Kent Park Trail has been around a long time. When I started, there were 17 boxes of various vintages. The boxes were old, and many of them had what looked like big piles of moss for roofs. Many of them were cracked and leaking, but I learned very quickly how much those old boxes were still in demand by bluebirds and by other animals other than bluebirds. For example, one of the first things I learned was that first comes sticks and then comes house wrens. A dummy wren nest that you'll see on the left side there is an eggless nest, not used for breeding, usually built by the male. It's just a pile of twigs without an egg cup. Males often build dummy nests in a number of cavities within their territory. Some think they may be meant to offer the female some wrens some choices. She chooses the cavity she wants and then reconstructs the nest in that location. Or the sticks might just be meant to prevent competitors from nesting nearby. Well, I thought, what cute little eggs and what cute little birds, and I do love wrens. And I started keeping track of how many house wrens I fledged each year out on the Bluebird Trail. Okay. By the third season out there, I was fledging more house wrens than bluebirds. The problem is that house wrens will enter a bluebird nest box, poke small holes in any bluebird eggs they find, and toss them out onto the ground. Or they might just throw a bunch of sticks on top of an existing bluebird nest and block the bluebirds from their eggs. I finally learned that if I wanted to have a bluebird trail instead of a wren trail, I needed to remove those dummy wren nests and the real wren nests as soon as possible. And that's all I'm going to say on that topic. But the wrens, the way I justify that is that the wrens are not in need of our help. They can take care of themselves. Another problem was mice. They're deer mice and they're nocturnal, so I would always catch them sleeping in the boxes. Many times they would return immediately after I evicted them, and I was sure they were preventing bluebirds from nesting. In the middle picture, you can see one of the berry baskets that I tried out for a while. This was a neat idea for the old square bottom boxes that I was using at the time. I could pull the basket out and get a good look at what was in the nest. The bluebirds will build their nest right in that basket. But the problem was that mice would chew the baskets to pieces. Now I have Peterson boxes, which I'll show you in a bit, so the baskets don't fit anymore. This is one of my favorite videos from my first 3 years out there. I think this guy was preparing to meet his maker that day. So, of course, I didn't know at the time that those stovepipe predator guards under the boxes that you're seeing now needed to have a mouse guard installed inside them. This is a picture of a mouse guard made from hardware cloth that is placed on the post inside the predator guard, inside the stovepipe. It's meant to stop mice and snakes from climbing up the T-post and getting into the box. This one has some dead bumblebees on it, which I sometimes find in the fall when I pull the boxes off the posts and put them in the shed. I have a mouse meets bluebird story for you. One year I found a mouse nest with a mouse in it sleeping on top of 4 bluebird eggs. Well, I removed the nest and chased off the mouse, and left the 4 eggs, although I doubted that the female bluebird would return to that box. But the following week, I found a female bluebird incubating 5 eggs in that box. The mother bluebird had returned to the box and laid another egg. All 5 eggs hatched and all 5 chicks fledged. It made me wonder, what if that bluebird and that mouse were actually a couple? Sharing that box. What would come from such a pairing? So I asked AI if it was possible, and this is what AI showed me. So if AI says it's possible, I guess it's possible. But I actually wonder, theoretically, would that mouse have triggered incubation in those 4 eggs that it was sleeping on? Okay. It was heating them up, and could they have started to grow? I'll never know. But some monitors don't worry about ants. They say the bluebirds just eat them. But I think ants can disturb the nestlings. This was after I pulled a nest out of the box. For years now, when I first find ants in a box, I put a narrow band of white lithium grease around the post. The ants won't cross this, but I have to trim back the vegetation around the post so that the ants don't have any bridges over the grease. Usually if I do this right, the next week there are no ants in the box. And if there were ant eggs in the box, those are gone too. And I find this fascinating because I think when I put that barrier of grease on the post, I cut off the food supply to the colony, then they have to leave the box. But how do they do it? Well, I think they take their eggs and jump. And I'd like to think that they're just fine because I like ants too. But I read that some ants can jump from trees and live. So I think they would be able to jump off of a box like that. I think the ants jump, and I've always thought that this would make an excellent plot for a new Disney movie. But I'm going to send that in. All bluebird monitors have had this experience. If a nest, you find a nest like this that the week before held eggs or nestlings, sometimes you find evidence under the box that a house wren or a house sparrow has raided the box and thrown out the eggs or even the chicks. But it's not uncommon to have what we call a mysterious disappearance of eggs or chicks. There's just no evidence of what happened. One day, though, it wasn't so mysterious. This fox snake was about 30 inches long. When I looked in the box the week before, there were 5 tree swallows in there, tree swallow eggs. I don't know whether the snake ate the eggs or the chicks, but I understand it doesn't matter to a fox snake. They'll eat either one. I noticed that when the snake left the box, I didn't see any big bulges in the snake, which I would think would be there if they had recently eaten either the eggs or the chicks. So for all I know, that snake was sitting in that box for a week digesting his meal. I don't know. But once again, this was before I learned what a mouse guard is. So, but really, I think this snake might have been able to go up the outside of the predator guard if it had wanted to. It was long enough. And I think snakes are the cause of most, if not all, of my mysterious disappearances. It wasn't until my 4th season that I learned about the threat of gnats, also known as buffalo gnats or black flies. They can kill nestlings by biting them, or some say by crawling into their nostrils and suffocating them. They're gnairs, they call them. I'm lucky that I don't get a lot of gnats out at Kent Park. One year, though, I found my first 5 bluebird nestlings of the year dead in the nest, and I think it was from gnats, because they were covered with little red marks. I learned to treat the boxes that have young nestlings with Absorbine Junior, and I have not lost a bluebird to gnats since.
Where do you do it, on the outside?
Yeah, to avoid getting the Absorbine on the chicks, I put it in a jar and use a paintbrush to apply it around the door cracks, the entrance hole, and the vent holes. There are other repellents that you can use as well. And so far I have not lost any more gnats, to gnats. Some trespassers are pretty harmless. We don't get a lot of house sparrows at Kent Park, and I'm very fortunate in that regard. When I do get a sparrow, all I can do is remove the nest and eggs immediately, because in addition to stealing the nest box, house sparrows will kill adult bluebirds and nestlings or destroy their eggs. This is a sparrow nest, which is much messier than a bluebird nest, and the sparrow's eggs in the next picture there. Tree swallows are welcome in the boxes. They're beautiful birds, and their nests start out looking like a bluebird nest, and sometimes they fool me. But then they line their nests with the feathers of other birds. It can make it difficult to count their eggs and chicks because they get covered with feathers. Tree swallow females are known, at least by me out at Kent Park, for refusing to leave the nest when you open the box. They're just, no, we're not going. I'm not going. Black-capped chickadees are also welcome. You can't mistake their nests. They start with a base of green moss. Then they line the nest with soft material like rabbit fur. Sometimes when you open the box, you just see what looks like a pile of fur. That's because when the female leaves the nest, she covers up the eggs with the fur. To count the eggs, you have to move the fur out of the way and then carefully cover them back up again. At Kent Park, the bluebirds didn't seem to mind how old the boxes were. They kept using them. They made themselves at home. Here's another one of my favorite videos. This old box had hardware cloth fastened on the inside of the door, and that was helping these chicks climb up and look out of the box. Eventually, I came to realize that many of the park's boxes were not in ideal locations. I think what happened is that over the years, the park changed. There were trees and underbrush where there had been none before, and the trees and underbrush are enemies of bluebird boxes because that's where the wrens are. And also, I had to walk into tall grass prairie to get to several of the boxes, and that's where the snakes are. So I enlisted the help of Jim Walters, who many of you must know, one of the founders of the Johnson County Songbird Project. He's in charge of numerous bluebird trails and purple martin colonies in Johnson and surrounding counties. Jim and I met with park officials, and they gave us the go-ahead to make some changes to the trail. We moved a lot of the old boxes to new locations and installed some new boxes built and donated by Jim. We also installed mouse guards on all the boxes. The day after the renovation, one of the naturalists at the park said that they had already seen bluebirds on some of the new boxes. We now had 25 boxes, most of them close to the road, which made them much easier to monitor. We had moved the boxes mostly out of wren territory, so wren competition was greatly reduced. There are many different kinds of bluebird nest boxes. The ones I monitor at Kent Park are called Peterson boxes after the man who designed them. This is a Peterson box. The boxes are mounted on steel T-posts, and they have a stovepipe predator guard under the hanging underneath with a mouse guard inside. I have a couple more of my favorite videos to show you here. This bluebird mom refused to let me count her eggs. I think bluebird moms are very brave. I was just a couple of feet away from her with my cell phone, but there's no way she was going to move. When this happens, I just leave the mom alone and come back next week. If you look carefully, you can see one of her eggs peeking out from underneath her. Yep. But I think she blinked, so I think I won. This is a video of some black-capped chickadee hatchlings that we fledged several seasons ago. They are super cute. See if you agree with me that they all need a haircut. There's 6 of them. There's actually 6 of them in there. So, yeah. Sometimes bluebirds don't appreciate what you're trying to do for them. All bluebird monitors have been dive bombed by angry bluebirds. Not all bluebirds do this, but one year I had an especially aggressive parent, I think it was the mother, in one of the boxes. She would dive bomb me like this every time I opened the box. I call this the dive bomber mystery because this behavior spanned a total of 3 months. To start with, there were 5 unhatched eggs in this box for over a month, which is not normal. I thought they must be infertile. I'm going to start it again here. But the parent kept dive bombing me, so I couldn't bring myself to take the eggs out of the box as long as she was still there guarding the nest. Finally, I found 3 bluebird chicks and 1 egg in the nest. How did that happen? Why did it take so long? And where was the other egg? The following week, the nest was empty. No chicks, no eggs. There was nothing under the box. They were too young to fledge. It was a mysterious disappearance. So I pulled the nest out of the box, and this is what I found. There was a bluebird nest on top of a bluebird nest, but I couldn't tell because they were joined so seamlessly. So at some point during the time that I was looking at this box, I believe 5 bluebird eggs disappeared thanks to either a wren or a snake, and they were replaced by 5 new bluebird eggs in a new nest on top of the old one. 3 of those eggs had hatched and 1 had disappeared. Then the 3 chicks had disappeared. But the story doesn't end there, because 1 week later, I found a brand new bluebird nest with 5 eggs in the box. It was a very short nest compared to most bluebird nests. I think it was built in a hurry. And I was again dive bombed by the bluebird. I can't prove it, but based on that bird's behavior, I think it was the same bird. Well, 2 of those eggs disappeared and 3 hatched and eventually fledged. So over a period of months, 3 months, I believe there were 15 bluebird eggs in that box. And from those 15 eggs, 3 nestlings fledged. It's a tough world out there for bluebirds. So once again, I can't prove it, But I think it was all the work of one brave bluebird. Could have been two, I don't know. Here is our bluebird fledges over the last 10 years. As you can see, it's going to be a very special year because we're going to hit 1,000 fledges since I've been out there. And I've been promised that that's going to be engraved on my tombstone.
What was the year you moved all the nests?
Pardon me?
What was the year you moved all the nests?
That would have been probably 3 years after I got out there.
So 2021, you had 53, and 2022, you had 119.
Yeah, and you know, most years we also fledged some tree swallows and less often some black-capped chickadees. 2021 was a bad year for bluebirds, and that was true of all of the monitors that I knew. I read a couple of articles that stated that thousands of eastern bluebirds were lost in the winter storms of 2020 and 21 in some of the southern states. So I think that was the cause of our low numbers in 21. And it took us a while to recover. My boxes aren't out yet this year, but I'm expecting any day to get an email from someone at Kent Park telling me that they have seen a bluebird going in and out of box number 1, which is the box that is permanently deployed near the administration building. And Brad Friedoff himself may email me and say, Ben, get out here. There's bluebirds going in and out of the box. And then I will hurry out there and put up the boxes. As I said earlier, bluebirds prefer open country. That's why Kent Park is so ideal. However, you may be able to attract a nesting pair to your yard if your yard isn't too hemmed in by trees or houses. I'm very lucky because all my nest boxes were, but one of them, were built and donated to the park by Jim Walters. We didn't have to build or buy any boxes. So I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't have any recommendations for where to buy bluebird boxes. They're available from many commercial sources, but be aware that some commercial nest boxes are poorly designed and improperly constructed. So before purchasing a nest box, refer to the NABS fact sheet. NABS is North American Bluebird Society that I mentioned earlier, and I'll show you that website again. You shouldn't mount bluebird boxes on fence posts or tree trunks or buildings because then they're vulnerable to climbing predators like snakes, raccoons, and cats. You should attach a predator guard under the nest box. Once again, refer to the NABS fact sheet. Finally, please don't put up a bluebird nest box if you don't plan to monitor it, which involves checking your nest box at least once a week during the nesting season. I want to thank these Johnson County staff members and Jim Walters from the Songbird Project who are part of my Bluebird team at Kent Park for all their help and support. And thanks to the seasonal naturalists and rangers who've helped over the years, they have made the Kent Park Bluebird Trail a success. Johnson County has recently, as Linda mentioned, has recently received a Bluebird-friendly Iowa, was recognized as a Bluebird-friendly Iowa community by the International Bird City Network. Last spring, Kent Park added another nest box trail around the lake at Kent Park, hoping to attract some tree swallows. And they had some luck with that, although, and this is not uncommon with a first-year trail. I fledged more tree swallows up on what I call the upper trail than they did down by the lake, so we got a kick out of that. And now there's a friendly competition between my trail and that other trail. But, and they got some bluebirds down there. So I offered to swap them, but they wouldn't agree. But And they also put up a gourd rack near the park entrance to attract purple martins, and they had them out there too. Yeah, so they are truly bird friendly out there, and in all their other properties as well. So I'd also like to thank you for being here, and may all your blues be birds. Okay.
Well, Ben, that was really interesting. I did not know that you had to have a special birdhouse for bluebirds and that you had to monitor them. We're going to take a short break. Please take an opportunity to visit Project Green's publicist, Judy Terry. She has her books for sale over there, and then we'll take your questions and have some drawings. Thank you. Welcome back. Our online viewers are watching the Iowa City Public Library's YouTube channel of Project Green's Second Sunday Garden Forum. We're with Ben Rowold, who is addressing monitoring Kent Park bluebirds. Before he answers your questions for our in-house audience, I want to share some statistics with you about how Johnson County has demonstrated its bird-friendly values. More than 21,000 acres of land are protected for conservation within Johnson County. The Johnson County Conservation manages over 2,700 acres of public land, 22 miles of paved pedestrian trails, and 24 miles of the Iowa River Water Trail. The Iowa River and its greenbelt serve as a vital migration corridor for year-round habitat in Johnson County. Ben's going to answer your questions.
Thank you. Okay, now I warned you I'm not a bird expert, so I just know one bird. But the first question is, can birds taste or smell their food? And I think the answer is no. Birds generally cannot smell. There's one notable exception, and that's the turkey vulture. The turkey vulture can smell that food tens of miles away and head in the right direction. I don't know of any other bird that can smell. I think I did some research on that one time, but most of them cannot smell. So, how far apart are the are the boxes? Was that the?
You said some of them have 2 broods a year, so.
Oh, the broods.
Yeah, how many,
Yeah.
how far apart do they brood like that?
Yeah, the first brood will lay the eggs, incubate them, and then brood them, sit on the brood for those periods of time that I mentioned, you know, and then they leave the nest, and within the next 3 weeks, the parents are then ready to start that second brood, you know, because they're out there taking care of those youngsters first, if you know what I mean. Then they want to start a second brood. So they're looking for another box to start a brand new nest in. By that time, I've cleaned out the old nest, what I call the fledge nest, you know, and they come in and they start building their new nest, you know. And I'm never sure whether it's the same bird coming back to the same box or whether another bird then found that box for their second brood or whatever. But how did I learn about the white lithium grease? I don't remember. I don't remember how I found that out. That sorry, no.
Where can you buy it?
Lowe's, yeah. Where do you insert the bore scope? In the entrance hole. In other words, you just hook it over the edge of that entrance hole and look around in there, and you can see the babies or the eggs or whatever it might be in that box. So, yeah. What type of box is the cylinder-shaped boxes by the lake meant for? Or what type of bird is the cylinder-shaped boxes? For the life of me, I think they're called Culbertson boxes, Culbertson boxes.
Gilbertson?
Gilbertson. I knew it had a son on the end. Okay, Gilbertson boxes. And those are made out of PVC pipe, you know. And they are bluebird boxes. Although when the park called up Jim Walters and said, we want to get some tree swallows too, because tree swallows are in trouble, just like bluebirds. They can use our help as well. So, and Jim brought out Gilbertson boxes to be put around the lake. So, and as I said earlier, they got both tree swallows and bluebirds in those Gilbertson boxes. Yeah. So there's some debate going on that now that you mention it. One of the naturalists, or one of the seasonal naturalists out there, did some research on those Gilbertson boxes and found an article that said those boxes are too small for tree swallows. And Jim started to kind of scratch his head. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're not good for. They were initially built, we learned, for bluebirds, designed for bluebirds. So it may have been the wrong box to bring out if you want to draw in tree swallows. You know, tree swallows, and I forget what the differences were. The baby tree swallows need more space than a bluebird, a batch of bluebirds needs in the boxes. So I don't know if that helped or not, but they were initially set up out there for tree swallows. And why do you take houses in the winter? That's a good question. Some people just leave them up. And there's a theory that bluebirds will roost in those houses in the winter. They go in there for shelter. But I take mine down at Jim's advice, Jim's suggestion, just so I don't have to paint them every other year. You know what I'm saying? It's a matter of... They last longer. The boxes last longer and they don't wear out as fast. So that's why I take them down and put them in the shed. Do you have predator guards on every box, or is hardware cloth good enough? You need both. You need that stovepipe predator guard hanging down. That keeps the raccoons and the cats from climbing up and getting in that box. And then the hardware cloth goes inside the predator guard. You put that right around the T-post and spread it out so that a mouse or a snake can't go up that post inside the predator guard and get out onto the box.
Do you
So
put it above or below that predator guard?
inside, in other words,
inside.
yeah, the predator guard hangs down around the outside of the post, and then inside there, attached to the post, is that hardware cloth, a circle that about that big around with a kind of an X cut in the middle that fits over that T-post, you know. So, and I'm always trying to figure out a better way of doing that, because those are hard to maintain. Sometimes I'll go out there to monitor a box and I'll find that slipped down the post. It fell down on the ground. Well, it's wide open now for snakes and mice to get back in the. So there's a better way, and I'll figure it out someday. I don't know, but recommend to plant near the box. Bushes?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
that's my question.
Okay.
So if they eat berries,
Yeah.
like, are there berry bushes that you would recommend?
Those ones that I mentioned, and I can't remember them now, hackberry and that they eat all of those, and I think a few more. I didn't put them all into the. There was quite a list of different
Yeah, 'cause
berries.
I'm trying to restore the back area of my neighbor's yards and mine, and they don't care, so I can maybe plant bushes and put some.
Okay,
trees.
yeah.
And I live near Kiwanis Park and the backyard's pretty open.
And
What?
A service berry.
Okay, service berry.
and you probably can find an answer to that on the NAB's website as well. What kind of bushes to plant, what kind of berries. So, would the lithium grease deter snakes from crawling up the post? I doubt it. I think that snake would shoot right over that little band of grease there. So that's just for the ants. And you know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And the ants will sometimes figure out how to get over that little band of grease around there no matter what you do. But when I do it right, when it works right, the ants go. They don't want to live in that box anymore. They get out of there. So.
Do you have to replace it multiple times a summer?
Because eventually it becomes, it kind of dissolves, or the rain kind of washes it off, and then you have to put another band around there. But only when I see an ant. I don't do it on every post automatically, but when there's ants in the box, then I do that. And yeah. How big is the entrance hole? I think they're 1.5 inches. Yeah. How big is the entrance hole for the nest? And then there's another word there. Nickels?
The size of a nickel?
Oh, no. Yeah, they're 1.5 inches across, those holes, yeah. Do you know of any successful bluebird houses in an urban setting? You know, we were just talking about Jeannie Paulson. I don't know if some of you know her or not. She monitors a trail in town. It's called, in Iowa City, it's called the East Side Trail. And it starts way down by the Hy-Vee store on First Avenue and runs along the creek. I forget the name of that creek. Ralston Creek. And then it gets way out to Scott Boulevard. And then she goes on the other side of Scott Boulevard into Scott Park and goes along there and heads north. She has like 18 or 20 boxes out there, I think. And she is constantly battling sparrows. Her biggest competitors are house sparrows. And she is just very diligent. She goes out and pulls those sparrow nests out. And by golly, she eventually gets bluebirds that come in there and nest, and she fledges bluebirds out of there. And Jim Walters recently praised her for her efforts, thinking that maybe she's starting a trend of bringing bluebirds into town, you know, but it's not easy. It's not easy to fight off and wrens too in town. And yeah, so she's about the most successful one that I know of, so yeah.
I have another question. It was kind of, how, do you have to put the boxes so far apart?
Oh, did I miss?
No, you didn't
Okay.
miss it, I just thought of it again.
Okay. Yeah, because if you have two boxes that are too close together, then the bluebirds fight with each other. They have to have their own area. And again, I keep shoving this along to NABS. NABS will tell you in those fact sheets how far apart those boxes need to be. And I don't worry about that at Kent Park. I've got all the space I need out there. I can, you know, I monitor my boxes from a pickup truck. I drive along the road and stop on the road and get out and monitor the box, whereas other people have to walk along the trail or whatever. At Kent Park, there's just a couple that are off on side trails that I have to walk to, you know, but most of them. So they've got recommendations. So I've read cases where they try to alleviate the competition between tree swallows and bluebirds by putting up 2 boxes back to back, and I guess in some cases it works. There'll be a tree swallow in one box and a bluebird in the other box. But I've never seen that or tried to do that, but I've read about it.
That's true, but you can't put the boxes too close together.
Okay, they still have to be some distance between them. Yeah.
Maybe about 20 yards or 30 yards.
That far, huh? Yeah, that far. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Do you do any bird banding with it?
Repeat her question.
Bird banding. Do you do any bird banding along with this nest box placement and so forth? And my answer is no.
Especially if they dive bomb you.
That's what they talk about. But the bird banding involves, for bluebirds, now for bird banders, you can catch the bluebirds in one of the mist nets, if you know what I mean, the adult bluebirds. And of course, the banders out at Kent Park do that. I was on a team of banders out there for a while, and we did catch bluebirds and band them. But another method is to band the nestlings, you know. Well, I'm against it, and if I have any influence at all, I will not allow the banding of the nestlings in my bluebird. I call them my bluebird boxes, but and that's because I showed you a picture of that Peterson box, and the Peterson box is kind of a V-shaped if you look at it from the side, but on the front is the door, and it opens this way and flops down so that you can see the whole nest. When that door is open, you can see the whole front of the nest. And sometimes the nest goes quite a ways up. You know, a bluebird nest can be that deep, you know. And I think about trying to reach your hand in there and grab a nestling out of there, pull it out, put a band on it, and then put it back in there. And now do that 5 times, you know. You're going to pull that nest right out of that box. It's going to fall on the ground, and you're going to regret it. So I don't think they... Now, I know they do that. They band nestlings out of the boxes, but I think they're the old-fashioned, the more old-fashioned square-bottom box where the door opens. Sometimes they open this way. My old ones opened up this way, and you can see them in there, for one thing. When I monitor the box is about at this height, and I can't even see in there. So I have a mechanic's mirror that I stick in there, and then I can see what's in the box. I can't even see them. So that's why all of my photographs are old. They're of the old boxes that I used to have. And although I can stick my cell phone in the top of a box and take a picture if I want to. But so I'm not involved in any banding and will not be if I can help it. I won't let them band my birds. So, what do you think?
I think he needs to make his other screaming sounds. Tell your son you want something else for Christmas.
Okay.
If there are no more questions, we'll draw
Oh,
for prizes.
okay.